Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and today we are hosting Daughter of Zion Eternally. And so before I begin, to listen to anything else from This and That, go to talkingaboutthisandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. For Daughter of Zion Eternally, you'll have to scroll down, and for her site, it's daughterofzioneternally.wordpress.com. The name of this is Equity. Daughter of Zion Eternally writes, "This morning I awoke with this one word. Like some I have known, I find myself doing a little digging. One thing becomes apparent. To perform in an equitable fashion under any law of the land, you need wisdom to impartially understand the scope of any given situation." That's deep. Equity, she writes, is not equality. I watched Katrina, a documentary talking about the mess that was the handling of New Orleans from the point of view of the blacks in the lower quarters where there was little money in the bank. The storm was never the problem. The levee system was, but the handling had an air of partiality. I listened to tracks of whites talking about shooting blacks they thought were looters. Full stop. You know, that's funny because that Katrina documentary came up on YouTube, and I ended up seeing it. I don't know if she may or may not mention it, but she talks about whites talking about shooting blacks. There was this one white guy that said it was like a turkey shoot, shooting black looters. I mean, she gets into stuff with this that I'm like, yeah, preach it, sister. She gets into this. This is actually really good stuff. But what they did out there was, and I'm also told that it's possible that not all the levees went. Some of them were opened to flood certain districts to do the damage that was done so that they could get rid of undesirables that were weighing down their economy. Such is the way man has always been. The poor are baggage. We don't want you. You're poor. Go away. We're better than you. Blech. And as long as that kind of sin is in the heart, well, you're not going to have equity. But Daughter of Zion Eternally writes, in this magnitude of disaster, there were stores with product and water damage. Power was out, and their profits were going down the drain thanks to the disaster as it was. No registers meant no way to quote-unquote sell their goods. Now, she writes, I have a stupid question. Why not allow those in need to simply get, or better yet, why not allow the police or the Guard, National Guard, to go into these places and assess what they could quote-unquote repurpose to the two places, the Superdome and the Civic Center and the bridge. That's 3 places. Now, here's the problem. What I just said would have been equity. The computers would have been okay, or at least the hard drives might have been salvaged, and the inventory that the floods would have lost or that the power outages would have caused to be lost could have gone to good use. Full stop. In other words, if it's not spoiled, if it's not perishable, or even if it is perishable, and you can get it and redistribute it for consumption, for food, before it spoils, the product is going to use. It's just not being vended. It's not being sold. But if the product just sits, what? So you let it sit and rot so that when you finally do your rebuild, you're what? You're going to go to your suppliers and get your money back? Really? Catastrophic stuff like this. Don't most entrepreneurs, most businesses end up doing a profit loss at the end of the year from their taxes? That's how they kind of recoup, because they have a massive profit loss. I mean, it's not just their inventory they lost. It's the building damage they lost. It's the this damage. It's the that damage. It's the employees that died or became disabled or whatever, or moved away. I mean, how bad was the disaster? That's where they get their money back at tax time. They reduce their taxes because they have net losses. So they conserve. They kind of make it almost like a break even, maybe, sort of. Or if their losses are there, they're manageable. And then they have the startup costs and the sunk costs, and it's a whole big complicated thing. But there is money to be conserved if it's done right. That's why the system for taxing is set up the way it is. When the losses incur, you're not supposed to be hit with a tax for what you lost on top of your loss. You didn't profit from it. you lost it. But if they had allowed people to use this, they could have maybe garnered favor with God. I mean, that's my 2 cents. God moves on hearts. Hearts who are favorable towards you might give you a price break on your materials to rebuild, might do a contribution, might invest in your business because you took what was going to perish and gave it away and said, listen, we're going to lose all this. Take it. Use it. Just let us find a way to get a list of what we had. Let us go through, do a quick inventory, find a way to try and get our hard drives out. Help us to do this. Don't steal from us. And then come in and get what you need. And if you're getting supplies for others, fine. Go get for others. Clean us out. We know we're going to have a loss of. If it's not good, don't use it. We don't want to have sick people. One of the problems with looting is if you're not smart, you loot something and you cook it up and you eat it and you get very sick and you die because you got rotten, spoiled food and were desperate and ate it anyway. But before it goes, take it. You can't sell it. You have no way to sell it. Power's out. You're going to lose it. It's going to spoil. So, she has a very great point here. That would be equity. Daughter of Zion continues, but no, greed said, I will keep mine. I will not share. Equity was not practiced in the aftermath, and some say that certain levees, she does say it, were not broken but open so to flood certain places to drive out undesirables. Those who are poor are the quote-unquote blight on the quote-unquote brightness of the planet. And yet were we not told that these poor would always be with us? Were we to turn them away or to give unto them? Still, it is in equity that kings will rule in the Old Testament. Equity assesses every situation uniquely, taking all things into account, and seeks solutions based on the tailored need or specific events of any situation. Equity isn't cookie cutter. It is harder to do than equality. Equity was how the kings of the Old Testament were to rule in accordance with Torah law. Proverbs 2:9. Then you will discern righteousness and justice and equity every good path. Proverbs 1:3. To receive instruction in wise living, in righteousness, justice, and equity. Psalm 98:9. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. That might be messianic, though. Psalm 9:8. And it is he that will judge the world with righteousness. He shall execute judgment upon the peoples with equity. Again, that's messianic. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, now this is called a witness. God is stating this at least twice in the Psalm, that one will come that will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. This means the idea of equity is a big deal with him, with God, in rule of law. We find it said of Messiah in Isaiah 11:4, but with righteousness he will judge the poor, and with equity he will decide with fairness for the meek of the earth. And of the throne of God itself, this is said, Psalm 45:6, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of equity is the scepter of your kingdom. Realize also that this is messianic, she says. Psalm 67:4, oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you will judge the peoples with equity and govern the nations of the earth, Selah. God, she writes, when he is ruling in the new heavens and earth, there will be a global rule of law, quote unquote, govern the nations of the earth. If we thought we were floating in the clouds, we were wrong. But look at the concept of equity, for it is found in the administration of rule. Now, as if to underscore the obvious and to point to the Father, as Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh, we find this, Psalm 96:10. Say among the nations, Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh, or Yahweh or Jehovah, reigns, quote unquote. The world is also established. It can't be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Even in the white throne judgment, which is also the sheep and goat nation separation, we find equity. Psalm 98:9. Let them sing before Yahweh, Yod-Heh-Vov-Heh, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. That actually would be a third witness. Peoples with equity, the world with righteousness. One last messianic witness, she writes, Isaiah 11:4. But with righteousness he will judge the poor and decide with equity for the humble of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will kill the wicked. Say I. Think chapter 19 of Revelation. Think the gathering after he seizes the beasts number 1 and 2 and chucks them into the lake of fire. He simply stands there and utters, I guess, and slays the wicked. Everything just rots in front of him. Yeah, it's a thing. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, now, when equity fails, it fails because truth is, quote unquote, fallen. Isaiah 59:14. And judgment is turned away backward, and justice stands far off. For truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. Micah also adds, Micah 3:9, please listen to this, you heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity. I mean, I just want to go back to that first one, Isaiah 59:14. Equity can't enter where truth doesn't exist. I'm looking at where we are right now with the GOP. We're a Republican-run nation. All of those who are staunch Republicans are going, oh, finally we have our moment. I hope you're enjoying it because you are killing us down at the bottom. And the elderly people who are staunch Republicans, look out, because all of your quote-unquote entitlement benefits that you paid in for all these years, your wonderful new POTUS is gunning to destroy it all, to dismantle. Listen to me carefully. If Donald J. Trump has his way, he wants to slimline the federal government and turn full control to the states. States have X budget. They rely on the Fed to bolster X budget to Y and Z budget. Why? Because each state has projects that are meant to fix the things in the state, and they may or may not have a whole lot left over to deal with the people in the state, especially if there's states that are being flooded or burned. You know, Cali, fire, fire, fire. North Carolina, water, water, water. What? Texas, I think, is getting a little fire here, a little water there, a little this there, a little that there, a little I don't know what. All the red states, all the Republican states, I don't know. Is this the new better dead than red? I'm just going to let that line just drop, because those of you that understand better dead than red understand what I just said. And then think about the new color of the Republican Party. The elephant is now red. So, I mean, you know, is it better that way? Should we start thinking on that term politically? I don't know. I mean, that's my 2 cents. So, right now we have so many lies being preached, so much nonsense is being spouted out all over the place, and it's coming out the mouths of our leadership. We don't know what they're thinking. We don't know if they can think. We just know that there's a lot of strange, freaky things being said. We're not even sure if the head of our nation is as healthy as everybody thinks he is. But I do know that he is being slandered and spoken ill of a lot by the blue folk, the Democrats. So it's basically they hate you because you're Republican, and Republican equals rich. So then they tell their version of little t truth, and nobody wants to look at capital T truth, which is in Scripture. So since all of that has fallen by the wayside, humanism, secularism, selfishness, selfism, right, then equity will never enter into the equation. It can't. It will always be perverted by those who can. So to the Democrats out there, if you think you're any better, and I am now a Democrat, after what the GOP did to my nation more than once, I left them, to hold my nation hostage and try to force shutdowns, only to find that the Democrats would like to do the same thing, and tried it during Biden's era. But what is in office now is far more deadly and divisive and destructive, and we still have 3 more years of this to go. We had a wooden yoke. We have an iron yoke now. Welcome to the new America. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, the abhorrence of justice will cause perversion of equity. Justice will be aloof, as it were, or standing far off, unobtainable, unreachable, when truth, capital T truth, falls. When lies dominate, equity cannot enter. Why? Because equity depends on truth. The actual truth tailored to each situation wherein the quote-unquote law is applied. You have 2 ways to apply law: in letter, which is equality, or in spirit, which is equity. Neither can be partial or look for a kickback, aka a bribe. You're not in it for you. You're in it to observe law and order and to, quote-unquote, hear the plight of the criminal. The man steals food in a hurricane aftermath and would have paid, but the power was out and the machines were down. But for the theft, the man dies. The food will rot in the store anyway. We cannot say stealing is good, but do we lock the man up, or do we assess his bank account and find he not only suffered hunger, but also loss? What then if he does community service to the place where he stole from as part of the cleanup? Can he work off the theft? That's valid. I'm just going to interject it. That's a very valid thought. How many of those people who did loot the stores, if they had fessed up, told what they had taken, had that sum assessed, and said, okay, well, you owe us for what you took. This is your bill. And then we find these people can't afford to buy it because they're now trying to do cleanup. What if they start working in that store for no pay till they've worked off their debt? That's right. That's called indentured servitude. You work off the debt. You get work out of this individual towards your need to rebuild, to restock, to re this, to re that, to do the other. Even if it's getting in there with a push broom, I don't know. And you tell the individual, you're doing this as a community service. You're not going to be paid. You stole X amount of dollars worth of stuff from me. This, what I would have paid you to come out here and help us, is your theft bill. You're now doing this to pay off your debt. I will get this amount of money of work out of you, but I will not pay you for your labor. And we'll consider it even. Don't do this again, or, I'll have the power on, and you'll be actually stealing from me. And see, at that point, now see, that's a difference. In a regular time where there is power and the person goes in and just takes it anyway, then you go, well, what are you, homeless? What are you have no money? You have no job? If you're homeless, you can't get a job. Not really. Because if an employer finds out you don't have a stable address, they don't want to hire you. You're not stable. You're not income stable, and you might not be able to get to work. You're not a stable person, and this perpetuates the homelessness because nobody wants to take a risk to invest in the individual's life to try and get them to a stable place and employ them. Of course, if the person who's homeless has an attitude, that may be why they're homeless to begin with. See, this cuts both ways. If you get an attitude about the handout you're getting, that handout can always dry up and go away, and you can always just rot on the street. Humility, folks, it's a very big deal with God. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, another is caught similarly, but there is no disaster, and it is a clear crime of greed or want and not real need. This person will be dealt with in accordance with the fuller application of the law and be charged and perhaps incarcerated. Absolutely. I'm also going to say this, she writes. Incarceration wrecks lives and begins a cycle of crime. Recidivism occurs, where the same type of crime or harder crimes repeat because they have to make money to live somehow. And now with a record, they're not trusted for hire. Rehabilitation is possible in some, many not so much. Equity would try to rehabilitate first and then see if recidivism occurs. If it does, we go a new path. If not, we have a success. Also, circumstances can destroy a life, placing a person on the street, and they can turn to crime because all street people will tell you that if employers learn that you're on the streets, they're less likely to hire you. This is her writing. I just said it, and she's saying it too. So crime or begging, which becomes a nuisance and a hazard as many beg in the traffic, becomes the only alternative. In a nation where everyone wants equal share, you will not have equity. But if one can accept being lesser but stable and able to get along and not have to keep up with the quote-unquote Joneses, then you might be able to have equity. Sin disrupts equity. James 2:1. My brothers, as you hold out your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, do not show favoritism. Now, the term equity will not be prevalent in the New Testament, but partiality and favoritism will be. If you have favoritism, you are perverting equitable justice and breaking both letter and spirit of Torah law. In fact, today we find legislation that is quote-unquote slanted and favors one people class over another by making their way of life more accessible and not looking out for the poor. Here in America 2025, we are rife with slanted legislation. Bills that passed before favored one people over another, like any quote-unquote equal rights amendment. segregation or desegregation was to give an quote-unquote equal access to both white and black Americans within education districts. It was supposed to make education better, but did equality really help? Or did it reveal the sins of racism in this nation? Racism is a form of favoritism, which is not of Christ or equitable. Amen. Preach it, sister. I told you, she's going to preach it. Preach it, sister. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, Roe versus Wade was supposed to end self-abortions, but opened a door for free sex and legalized abortion on demand at all levels without real checks and balances. Yet it also opened health care access to blacks and the poor. Now that it is not federal and Christians are happy, blacks and poor are without clinic access for medical help. Then again here, truth, capital the, capital truth, failed. It fell. And now both racism and sexism, the other kind of prejudice, breeds half-truths based on quote-unquote agenda. Equity cannot now enter the equation. Neither can any form of equal right. However, are rights more entitlement than legal status? If so, then entitlement is also a form of favoritism. Can equity come into play where the populace feel that they are entitled to have their rights? Woman's right to choose what they want to do with the pregnancy before God. Does anyone have that right? She said it, I didn't, but I agree. Before God, does anyone have that right? Termination of a potential of a healthy, progressing, possible life is to God murder. Sacrificing that pregnancy because they don't want to endure it, because it is inconvenient, is selfishness. You enjoyed the activity that resulted in this responsibility. Now you have to be held accountable. But this is a problem of morality and teaching that playing with sexuality before marriage is okay. And also that marriage is it's not a commitment. If it doesn't work, we'll just nix it. What about the life you produce? Oh, you didn't care about that. Marriage is a commitment. You enter it with great searchings of soul. Whether it seems to work out or not, you're in it. Once you're in it, you're in it. You're stuck. Live it out until somebody dies. And don't make it because you killed them. Don't make it because you prayed they would die either. You'll have to bear that before God. You'll have to get forgiven for that sort of thing. I ought to know. No, I have not killed my husband, but I did say some words, and then my husband's cancer came back with a vengeance. That killed him. I often wonder if the words that I said didn't actually become my husband's death sentence or not. That's what I'm talking about. Watch what you pray for. You might not want to have it actually happen. Daughter of Zion eternally writes, then again, the one thing you cannot do is legislate morality. In fact, can you have equity without true godliness? No. From our AI on the web, I type in equity and Torah law in the Bible, and AI serves this up. Oh, she's using it now too, huh? Equity in the Torah involves a comprehensive framework for justice, emphasizing universal dignity, economic redistribution, debt forgiveness, land ownership for all Israelites, and one law for citizens and strangers. These principles are exemplified by the Jubilee year and laws preventing exploitation, aiming to prevent a hierarchical society and ensure a basic standard of living. Oh, this had to have happened. When she wrote this, she says, we are 2 days into Teshuvah, which means that she wrote this on the 26th of last month. And today on Facebook, I get a messenger. Seems our POTUS is making Jesus Lord of his life. I didn't look at the clip because it's emotional hype when most modern-day Americans go through this, and it's also a bargaining chip. Perhaps the rumors of POTUS not as healthy as we all think are true, or, well, he is not a spring chicken and will not live forever in that current body. But will the above begin to be seen in his administration? Time will tell, she writes. This is her, not me. I saw that same thing. I thought that was adorable, laughable, ridiculous. Since that hype thing came out, POTUS has done nothing more than just double down as POTUS. Double down and do what he's been doing. I'm now getting these things on my email about Social Security going to be gone in a year or maybe even next month because POTUS wants to gut it. You know, my mother has Social Security. I pray she dies before he guts it. You know, I am 63 and I'm the talk show host. I'm 63. At age 67, I'm supposed to pick up my husband's Social Security that he had at death. He was on Social Security, SSA, supplemental assistant. Yeah, he had $1,005 on his account at that time. Do you know what that would do for me for my Medicare? A lot. Might even allow me to afford a little co-insurance to reduce my debt load in my old age. Maybe. Right. I have no hope in my heart of Social Security. Within years of my getting on it, it'll be gone. So I wonder if at age 67 is when I'm allowed to get full 100% benefits. I'm 63 in 4 years. If it's not even worth it to me, do I even apply? Take what I can while I can and then get off it. You know, that's why old people end up having to get jobs and take those jobs away from the younger people. Or maybe we'll just euthanize Granny because, you know, it's too expensive for Granny to live. So Granny can be just put into the chamber. We'll just put Granny in the pod and gas her to sleep and that will be the end of it. Yeah, nice, neat, tidy. We'll answer to our maker at our death. We don't care. We have a while. Then comes a lightning strike, you know. Right. You wait. We're going to end up euthanizing those who are sick, those who are old, because we can't afford them. Not in my lifetime, maybe. Maybe not even in my children's lifetime, but I'm surprised. You know, I don't have any grandchildren. Not yet. Don't think I'm going to have them either. I think my kids are looking at the future and going, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to put them through this. Daughter of Zion eternally continues. Deuteronomy 32:4. He is the rock. His work is perfect. All his ways are just. A God of faithfulness without injustice. Righteous and upright is he. Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do right. Seek justice and correct the oppressor. Defend the fatherless and plead the case of the widow. Now, we don't see the word equity here, but we do see the word just and justice. Recalling these two proverbs, Proverbs 2:9, then you will discern righteousness and justice and equity, every good path, Proverbs 1:3, to receive instruction in wise living, in righteousness, justice, and equity. We see both words together, justice and equity. Now, when I look in my online interlinear, I find Hebrew words. One is mishpat, the justice. The other is mishraim. This is equities. From Mishar, Strong's 4339, and Strong's adds, agreement, a right, that are equal, equity, things that are rightly, things sweetly. King James Version, agreement, a right, that are equal, equity, things that are righteously, right things, sweetly, uprightly, and uprightness. New American Standard Bible, equity, smoothly, peaceful arrangement, right things, rightly, sincere, smooth. These are terms. English terms that can be used for Mishar. Daughter of Zion eternally I add the two translation word breakdowns to show you the one word involved, and that is uprightness, being upright, being sincere, genuine, honest, agenda-less. Unless in leadership, it is to the service of those you are leading. In Deuteronomy 17:18 through 20, kings are remanded to create a copy of the Deuteronomic law in the presence of the Levites who were scribes, so the quote-unquote law would be accessible to the ruler at all times. Proverbs 16:12, it is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. The throne, or presidency, or governorship, or leadership in general, is established in righteousness. In looking up inequity online, I keep coming up with iniquity. So I went to Merriam-Webster's online, and this is the response. Inequity versus iniquity. These very similar words have distinct meanings. Inequity means, quote-unquote, unfairness or, quote-unquote, injustice. And iniquity means, quote-unquote, wickedness or, quote-unquote, sin. And yet it's clear that these two words do sometimes overlap, even in our own dictionary's definition, since inequity is defined as, quote-unquote, injustice for one of its senses, yet iniquity is also defined as, quote-unquote, gross injustice for one of its own. So, given the similarity of the words and the closeness of their meaning in some uses, the question arises, are they truly equal? So then, inequity is unfairness or injustice, while iniquity is wickedness. So Proverbs 16:12 is talking about the practice of iniquity, which is idolatry. Rebellion, however, is as witchcraft. 1 Samuel 15:23. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. The above is what Samuel the priest/prophet told Saul, the first king of Israel. Now this is where she stops. She has another item that will be coming across, and I'll be doing that at a later point, and it gets to the root of equity. You can't have fairness and impartiality without some righteousness within. Real Christians, had they been running this government, might have done so in equity. What is in government right now, which says it's Christian nationalism and is going to make this a better world, is doing so through fear and intimidation. And I can tell you about fear and intimidation. Let the Christ come and sit on his throne in the new heavens and new earth. That is fear and intimidation for those who want to be difficult with God. But those that don't want to be difficult with God will find that he's not fearful or intimidating, but that he is wonderful, loving, compassionate, and super equitable. And that will do it for this episode of This and That. Until then,